Yeah, I think that video games is a form of escapism. A lot of people always talk about escapism as a negative thing. We've all heard that, oh, gamers just don't want to deal with the real world. That's why they want to get into all these escapist fantasies and they just want to be violent. And, it's quite literally
Ugh.
that one meme of guys only want one thing and it's effing disgusting. Um, and then it's like, or it's not that one. It's I think it was like a React video where it said, "See, this is why I hate video games. It appeals to the male fantasy,"
Oh
and it just
man.
and people have edited so many things. Like they've edited the Skyrim, "You awaken feeling well rested." Yes, that is a fantasy. Or it appeals to the male fantasy, and it just shows somebody giving somebody a hug, and you're like, "Yeah, I kind of want that."
Mm.
So that's one of those things of games do appeal to an escapist fantasy, and I don't think it's a strictly male fantasy. There's a lot of great experiences that women can glean from games, and my voice. Sorry, I'm gonna have to grab another water after this. I already drank through mine. um and I think that games, the escapism isn't a bad thing. It's not saying I don't want to ever deal with my problems in real life. And sure, there's arguments to be made that with addiction and whatnot, yeah, maybe that could be the circumstance. But what a lot of games serve to do is right now there's a lot going on, and don't I can't handle it all right now. I can't handle the mental load. My mind is consumed with everything and being pulled in a million directions at once. Let's play a game. Let's focus on a simple rule set that I can understand. Let's focus on a world that I can both understand and makes no sense, and get lost for a couple minutes. And then we can all come back. And then our world makes a bit more sense because we just traveled off to Skyrim where I can yell at a man and he flies off a cliff. That's funny. That got really sentimental and then funny again.
There you go. Yeah, once again, well spoken and very beautiful. And one thing we definitely need to remember, video games are a hobby, and and it is an escape. But we just like everything else, it doesn't need to be abused. It doesn't need to become an addiction, or at least an unhealthy addiction. Where you just kind of just stay home and not work and not make a living. You still, you can still make a video games part of your life, but you need to be able to, go out there and impact the community, and make it, get yourself out there in the real world. Because if you just get lost in the world of video games, you'll end up just getting completely consumed by it, and you just end up looking at yourself when you're 60 years old and just wondering what else you could have done, what skills that you didn't discover. And sometimes I wonder if I just concentrate too much on video games. I mean, I have a very stable career because I was able to balance out my love for video games and what I wanted to do in the real world. And I feel like sometimes video games kind of take over because I could be a better employee by, simply getting more licenses. I slack a lot on taking tests, studying. I do fairly well with the lack of what I put into it, but I really need to back off sometimes just to put into studies, just so I can, get raises, and instead of just staying in the same spot, which I feel like I've done for the past maybe 8 years, where I've gotten maybe a few licenses and I just kind of back off, and I do need to focus more on improving myself so I can keep continuing increasing financial gain. And however, it's still working very well, and I'm maintaining that balance. But like I said, sometimes video games do get in the way because there's so many video games that I want to experience. However, I just don't need to let it overcome me eventually.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I thought the same thing. I think I feel a little differently while also understanding where you're coming from, because yeah, games can be a painfully, life consuming sort of thing where if you're, doing nothing with them, then yeah, you can just I think you mentioned this either on our previous conversation or whatnot. But you can just kind of passively engage with video games and like, yeah, I play video games. Or do you experience, do you discuss, do you consume them, and do you consume them like art, or do you consume them like goods,
Hmm.
for lack of a better term? Do you consume them as a product, or you consume it as a piece of art,
Right.
where going to a you know going to a museum or whatever, experience a piece of art, and consuming it as a piece of art means engaging with it on a different level. And um granted, I know that that doesn't make you money or get you better at your job or anything, and yeah, once again, do good at life before doing good at games. But I think that there are ways to go places. I mean, gaming is a multi-billion-dollar industry,
Hmm.
and outside of just making, developing, um, that's, I guess, kind of to come all the way back, because boom, Dark Souls cycles. Look at us go. We are so meta. Is going back to your very first question, was what are my aspirations with the channel? Is I think someday I would love to just be able to do nothing but just vomit my thoughts about video games, anyone who's willing to listen, and make a living off of that somehow, some way.
Oh
And
yes.
like, and I say vomit, but like good vomit, not bad vomit. uh don't think about that one too much.
Hmm.
I would love to just be able to talk, write, review, uh, do all sorts of things that are financially viable, while still letting me engage with this medium of art in this way. And I know that it's not going to happen for everybody. I do still have a career outside of this. And yeah, that is basically all I have to say on that subject. And by say basically, I mean that is 10% of what I have to say on that subject.
That's definitely, a great goal if that's something you want. I feel like I would get burnt out personally. Just I mean, of course, I love talking about games on the side, but just doing it, for financial gain, I feel like it would become a chore, which is something I definitely would not want. I don't want gaming to become a chore, and so I like a good balance, like I mentioned before, of working, in a career with other people, interacting with other people, and having challenges outside, and then coming home and focusing on the hobby that I really love talking about and experiencing. And like I said, I just feel like if I focus 100% on that and for financial gain, I just don't think I would enjoy it as much.
Yeah, I think that is also, a trap that can definitely be fallen into. And I think that's also kind of why I wanted to, you know, try and keep my head above water as much as I can. And, that's going to be my focus. That I've told my wife, if I ever seem like I'm straying from this, drag me back to it. The focus of I'm doing this for me, and talking about games for me, to remind myself. Um, because it's cool. I think that YouTube's a crazy cool invention, where if back in the day you were to say, I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up, you would have been laughed at. Nowadays, oh no, look at those YouTubers making millions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even just like, no matter what, like, just even being able to just live comfortably by talking about something I genuinely have a huge passion for, I think that would just be the coolest thing ever.
Oh
And if
yes.
not, it'll still be my thing I do on the side. And I think that's another thing, is I feel like I have infinite content, because my brain comes up with like stuff to say about games by the minute. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, oh no, when am I going to get this all written down? Like, all these Why I Still Plays I'm doing, this is like phase one. I can guarantee I'm going to come back and be like, while I'm still playing, why I'm definitely still playing. Like, I could continually talk about every game. Like that 20-minute video I made about Dark Souls is probably about 10% of what I would love to say about Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just don't want to make hour-long videos
Yeah.
because I already felt like I was getting very tangential with the script on that one. So, and I did end up cutting like 2 minutes worth of stuff out of it as well, or else it would have been like 22 minutes. So, yeah, uh, it's a great topic to talk about, and there's, I think, a lot more room because video games have really only recently come into their own as a somewhat accepted medium of art. Not even fully yet, I don't think. I think there's still some ways to go before video games are accepted as a form of art, fully and thoroughly. But I do think we are on the right track, and I think that a lot more discussions have to be had about the merits of games as artistic works, and that a lot more games need to do kind of what Dark Souls did and be willing to position themselves as works of art instead of as toys or whatever.
I don't know if you've seen these protesters, but I think it'd be really funny if they went as far as to go inside a GameStop and pour tomato soup on top of all the video games and then glue their hands to the floor.
Dude, smash a copy of Dark Souls. That'll send a message, probably.
Yeah, glue their hand to the Elden Ring copies, Dark Souls, Sekiro, Bloodborne.